Good morning. Welcome to Kensington Church. We're so glad you joined us this morning, streaming from your couch or your bed or your kitchen or wherever you are. Hopefully not while you're driving. My name is Michael Bouchard. I'm the Student Ministries Director here at the Orion campus, and we are glad you joined us today. Got a couple of things to let you know about. First of all, this Wednesday, we have a family night. It's a virtual online service for all of our families. So if you guys want to go, all you got to do is go to our website and you can sign up and register there. There's going to be it's a full service. It's going to be on Zoom, and they got a lot of fun stuff. They got some games. They got some prizes. I guess some pretty good prizes. So we'd love to have you join us. That's this Wednesday. Also, while you're online, make sure you go to Facebook and join our Facebook group. We have one for this campus, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. Also, on top of that, on Sundays after service is done, we have discussions. We have not in person. We have virtual discussions on our Facebook group. So we would love to have you join us after the service, even today. And then one more announcement for you. I got to give a shout out to my high schoolers and my middle schoolers. We do have our Edge and Breakaway programs tonight and also next weekend, next Sunday evening. So for the next 2 weeks, we have our Breakaway program, which is middle school, and that starts at 5 here at the building. And then we have our program for high schoolers at 6:30. And we follow all our guidelines. We make sure it's a safe, fun environment for students to still hang out and see other people from 6 feet away with our masks on. But we would love to have you join us if you are a middle schooler or high schooler, or if you have one, just go ahead and send them. But welcome to our stream today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy what God has for you.
Well, it's that time of the year. We've already had a few dustings of snow, and I'm reminded of the awe and wonder this season brings every year, especially when I drive down my street and I see houses lined up with different colors and arrangements of lights. Have you ever stopped to consider that it's the darkness that brings out the beauty of those lights? It's when the night is darkest that we can really see the light of even a single candle. And a single candle in the window whispers something. It whispers welcome, that there's hope here. A single candle reminds us God is sending his light into the darkness. It reminds us that there is no darkness in our lives that can't be lit up by this special light. This light is a person, and his name is Jesus. And we're going to be celebrating the birth of Jesus, the light of the world, both in person and online starting December 23rd. Tickets are available for in-person services, so please reserve some seats for you and your friends and your family that are planning to attend. And of course, to ensure safety and physical distancing, tickets are going to be limited. We know that many of you will be watching from home this year, so we're creating an online-only exclusive service made just for you. To create the most memorable and meaningful service, we have a Christmas at-home kits available for you to pick up at your campuses. In those kits, there'll be candles for the family, the world's best hot cocoa. I have no idea where we found the world's best hot cocoa, but we have it. A star ornament craft and many things for the family will be included in these kits. So please reserve your kit and find more information about online services as well to reserve your tickets. You can do that right at kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas. The theme for this year is fitting in so many ways. It's called Home for Christmas. We'll be looking at the Christmas story through the eyes of the wise men, the Magi, who came one way but then they left another. And no matter where you're watching Christmas services from this year, either in person or online, we truly believe that you will encounter Jesus. That's why we do this. We want people to encounter the light of the world, just as the wise men did. And guess what? When they did, it changed everything. It'll be nostalgic and beautiful. Maybe it'll be a little bit like this clip from Christmas at Kensington in 2012. Man, there's something about looking back at the past with fresh eyes. Today kicks off a brand new series that we're calling Foundations, and I'm super excited about this series because together we're going to explore the beginnings of Kensington, the way that God grew and shaped this community. And we're going to be hearing from each of the founding couples. And today we're going to kick it off with Mark and Callie Nelson. You know, Mark and Callie have a very, very special place in my heart, in my wife Amy and our family. Mark really took a chance with me almost 20 years ago where he hired me to come on staff, and I was so new in my faith. I look back now and I cannot believe that he actually did that. But he brought me on staff and he walked with me and really did disciple me and train me in the ways of arts, in the ways of church, and more importantly, in the ways of Jesus. So I just owe so much to Mark and Callie, and I'm so grateful that you get to hear from them today. So sit back, really take in what God is going to do today. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Kensington. Would you please stand with us as we come before the Lord this morning? And I pray that you would just make this your prayer today to be available to the Lord. Narrow as the road may seem, I'll follow where your spirit leads. Broken as my life may be, I will give you every peace. I hear you call, I am available. I say yes, Lord. You call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available.
Morning, Orion. One of the things I'm excited about this morning is being able to host essentially an opportunity for us to listen to the story of Mark and Callie Nelson. And I think especially because Mark's life is a great example of what we just sang, of what God can do when you say to him, I'm available. At the same time, what's at stake when we say no to God asking, are you available? It's also one of the reasons why, frankly, I love the next moment of what we're going to do together as a community with our offering. Because this is a moment of us also saying to God, I'm available. With, frankly, one of the things that we tend to be least available with and most guarded with. But when we open up even that to God and say, I'm available even there, the things he can do is unbelievable. Not just with it, not with our resources, but in our own hearts. Which is why a moment like this, when we go to our moment of offering, you realize that that's as much a moment of worship as anything else that we do when we gather. It is a moment of trusting Jesus. It is a moment of saying we love you with everything that we have. It is a moment of us embodying what he said is the greatest way to live, to love him and to love others. As a matter of fact, I want to share a really cool thing that we're doing this holiday season as a result of your generosity through your giving. Obviously, we all know that 2020 has been a really difficult year. For some of us, very directly as a result of the pandemic. For some of us, indirectly, but we've all been touched and impacted by it. Some of us worse than others. And so we wanted to figure out as a community this year, how do we help those who are struggling with a little extra something to say, we see you, we love you, we care about you, the very thing that we're constantly encouraging all of us to do as the people of Jesus. Well, we want to put a tool in your hand this year and literally give you a resource to go do that. So here's how we're going to do it. Hope for the holidays. If you yourself or you know someone who could benefit from a $25 gift card to Meijer, here's what we're going to ask you to do. Text in the word HOPE to the number on your screen. And that's all you need to do. I think there's a simple question following that will just be about the address to send it to. And that's it. No questions asked. We'll send you a $25 gift card. So whether you need that for yourself and we can bless you with that, or whether you know somebody, a coworker, a neighbor, a family member that you can give that to, from you give it to them and you bless them with that. We want to put a tool in your hand to actually be the feet of Jesus, the hands of Jesus, the compassion of Jesus. I know it's only $25, but for some of us, it won't be the money that matters. It will be being, I think, thought of for somebody that will matter the most. So if that can serve you or that can serve somebody you know, then I hope you take advantage of it. And I just want to say thank you to those of you that are financially partnered up with us, because we can only do things like this because of your generosity. So when we have a moment like we're going to have right now where we take up our offering and we receive that, like this is a moment of worship. It really is. Because it's these moments that say, God, we love you, so we're trusting you, and that enable us, like with what we just saw, to literally, tangibly love the people around us as well. So if you're just joining us in person for the first time in a long time, you may not know this, but we're not passing anything. I've been saying that the last couple of weeks when I do the offering, just to make it clear, because that's a change for us. So here's how you can give if you're a part of this with us this morning. You can do it online, through our app. You can even text in 77977, the word Kensington. Or if you really want to do something physically, you can do that as you walk out the doors at the end of the service this morning. But I just want to say thank you, especially right now. It's such a difficult time coming into the end of what has been a really painful year for so many people, your giving continues to enable us to help and serve and love so many that are hurting around us. So here's what I'd love to do. I want to just pray that God would use what we just gave and multiply it to an impact we could never imagine. And then share a little bit about the video we're going to watch, and then we'll meet Mark and Callie. So let me pray. Father in heaven, who's also here with us this morning, you are great. And you, it's so incredible to think, as the God of creation, are available to us. Without appointments, without having to jump through a bunch of hoops, without having to be perfect, you are the God of creation who says, I'm available to you at any moment for any reason. And so God, this morning, I just say that we're available to you then. And we want to receive what it is that you have for us today. And so my request would be that you would enable our minds and our hearts to receive from you whatever it is that you have to give to us. Then in our availability, we would encounter you today. In Jesus' name, amen. So like Danny said in the video a minute ago, this morning starts what's going to be, I think, a really incredible series for us. In a season of so much transition with our founders, we thought it would be a really great way to wrap up the year celebrating the last 30 years of Kensington's history and doing it by looking at Kensington through the eyes of the three founding families and seeing what God did in them that ended up creating what all of us, for so long, some of us have been benefiting from. So we're starting with Mark this morning, and I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet Mark Nelson. My first encounter with Mark was years ago. For those of you that don't know, before I came to Kensington, I launched a church over in Warren called Paradox. And Kensington at the time came alongside and helped me launch that church. But probably, I don't know, a couple months before we actually went public and opened our doors, we had a very small core team that was still gathering, about 50 people. And I had this one particular Sunday where with that core team, I was going to be out of town. I was on a conference away for the weekend. I was taking our arts guy that we had on staff with us, and that was it. It was he and I. We had no big staff. We did not have a lot of volunteers or leaders at that time. And so I had nobody to draw on to take our spot when we were gone. So I called up Kensington. I thought, well, they're helping us get started. They're pretty big. Maybe they've got some extra musicians or speakers, and they can kind of help us out. So I got a hold of the guy that was in charge of the church planning department at the time. He's like, yeah, we'll figure something out. We'll get you somebody. What I did not realize is that the somebody who would come over to this small, disorganized, rambling group was Mark himself. And I remember when I found out that Mark came over, helped lead worship, brought a team with him, and actually spoke that morning as well. I remember thinking, holy smokes, like we're nobody. Like we weren't even launched. We're so disorganized at the time. There's nothing professional about us. And here comes Mark, the head of everything creative here at the mega church Kensington, that came over to serve us. And I had a number of encounters with him over the years to follow. And every single time, I think the thing I was most impressed with was just his unbelievable servant's heart. Like, Mark had a position where I guess he could have walked around kind of a little high and mighty. Instead, he walked around with this unbelievable servant's heart. And one of the things that you'll see in the video that's so cool is not just how God shaped that servant's heart, but particularly how he shaped it in the area of the arts, really. And how not just was that something that God gave Mark, but I think it's something that's actually reflective of the nature of God himself. One of my favorite sections of verses in the Bible is in a book called Psalms. Psalms chapter 19 talks about the creative, artistic nature of God. Listen to this. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, and night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them, and yet their voice goes out into all the earth. I love it. Creation has no speech, but it has a voice. And like any form of creativity or art, whether it's the art of creation or whether it's a painting, a sculpture, whatever it is, art has this unbelievable ability to tell us a couple of things. Number one, there was somebody whose mind dreamed it up. Number two, there was somebody whose hands formed it. And one of the things that Mark deeply believed is that we could use artistic moments, creative moments in the context of the church to become the voice of God, to be a voice for God in a way that even spoken word can't be at times. Matter of fact, one of my favorite quotes about this comes from a guy named Dan Allender. Dan Allender says this: "Art and music speak the grace of the human heart and soul that the spoken word cannot reach." And I think if you think about your own life and your own experiences, you have definitely had times where some form of art, maybe it was a painting, or maybe it was a lit up city at night, or maybe it was a sunrise or a sunset. There was some art moment that you found yourself in that talked to you. You know what I mean? Like you have a moment where you just find yourself staring at something beautiful, and it's almost like you have this transcendent moment where it's communicating something to you. A few years ago, my wife and I took our kids to the Grand Canyon. I actually have a picture of us sitting right on the edge of it at one point. Now, everything about this picture that looks beautiful, there were definitely moments of terror, because knowing my 3 kids, I'm like, do not stand up from that chair unless I tell you to, because it's literally like 4 feet to the edge. But there was a point like sitting there where I just looking out over the vastness of the Grand Canyon, like just being in awe and having one of those moments where it was almost like it spoke. And then there was a moment where I'll just tell you honestly, I don't know what you think about God speaking in his voice. Like I don't know if you believe this or know this, but you can hear God's voice, not necessarily like an audible way, but there are ways that we can hear God's voice in written form, as well as just the way he impresses thoughts into our mind and heart. And I'm telling you, I sat there and I felt like I heard God whisper into my ear, "I made this for you." And he made it for all of us. There's something so precious and beautiful about art, and especially in its ability to communicate without words. And one of the things that was so powerful about what Mark brought to Kensington over the years, from day one until present day, is a belief and a passion that through the arts of Kensington, whether it was lighting or a drama or music or stage design or room design, like in all these different forms, is that it could have the ability to communicate God's voice to us and to draw us into the presence of God, to have an encounter and an experience with him that even at times the spoken word itself can't do. So we're going to listen to a little bit of Mark's story and his journey that God brought him through, that was really the birth of him saying to God, "I'm available." So here's Mark and Callie Nelson.
I remember as like a teenager, not sleeping well at night, being concerned or worried, but I had a relationship that was very private with God. Never talked with anybody else about it, but it was real. And quite often I would get up middle of the night, 2 a.m, and go walking down our long driveway to Coulter Road. And I remember praying, just talking with God, and tears running down my face. I remember seeing stars through the tree canopy. I would sing "How Great Thou Art," because I knew that song from going to church, and that's how I felt. I was just amazed, just an immense love for beauty, the power of creation, the wonder of it. And I think I kind of developed that childlike heart. The first time I actually felt something deeply from art was actually when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, she made me play in the band. And I was terrible. I mean, I did audition. Everybody had to audition, and I got last chair trumpet, just a total embarrassment. But the guy that was the director that year, his name was Joe Dobus, University of Michigan graduate, rookie teacher, came in, and he was convinced that music was the greatest thing ever. And that it wasn't about playing notes, but it was about getting to feel it, to create an emotional expression that was meaningful. We're all just like, yeah, whatever, dude. We were terrible. We didn't know what he was talking about. Everybody was screwing around, and it was just a mess. But over that year, he kept at it, and he worked really, really hard. And I remember the day that actually this podunk group of kids playing, and actually we did something that was really beautiful and moving, like expressive, and it was in tune, and it actually sounded good for the first time. And I remember everybody just I remember looking around, and everybody's like, "Oh, what the heck was that?" And from that moment on, he kind of had our attention a little bit. And over about a 3-year period through high school, he developed a program where a great number of kids were getting, they were going to the big universities on music scholarships and stuff out of Lapeer, Michigan. My bar for excellence in all things, I didn't even realize it had happened, but I would compare Joe Dobus as a teacher to my football coach and to my biology teacher and anything else that I was kind of evaluating. So I went to college as a music major and ended up teaching my first year out at Oakland Christian School. what was interesting is the very first time I was troubled by the fact that it looked like if you were a follower of Jesus, if you're a Christian, that you had to kind of make a choice to be in a lesser camp. But if you were going to be really good, you couldn't really stay in that camp. You had to kind of go to the secular university and pursue this, because that's where the really great stuff was. And it's kind of made me mad. And I read a book by Francis Schaeffer's son, and it was called Addicted to Mediocrity. And I didn't read books very much at all, but that book helped me kind of put language to what I was feeling. And it was saying, why have we allowed the church and Christianity to be a place where it's just kind of mediocre at best, but the really good stuff is reserved for people and artists outside the church? And that just never went away. And so when I got to Oakland Christian, I think I tried to be Joe Dobus, wasn't very good at it. But I really was trying to help my kids sense what I had sensed, this something that was worth being a part of, worth listening to, that would move my heart deeply, you know. And over years of, you know, wanting to kill the kids and the kids wanting to kill me, we kind of got there, you know, and began to experience expressing things that were really powerful. Now, what happened is when I met my wife, Callie, we started kind of it was like a sing and dance kind of a thing. And in a Christian school back in the 80s, that was not allowed. But what happened is the kids were really gifted. It wasn't anything we did. They were super gifted as musicians and so forth. And they were able to communicate things so powerfully. And we would travel to churches. Surprisingly enough, this kind of secular type thing was moving people in church. Callie and I were married in 1985. And in 1986, we started attending this new church, and it was called Faith Church in Rochester. And lo and behold, a few months into that, this guy named Steve Andrews took a job there as an associate pastor at Faith Church. And but the neat part about him coming was that he had the charge and the permission both to plant a church, and it was supposed to be within 3 to 5 years. And so I'm like, wow, is this a real thing? People do this, you know? And then shortly after that, Dave Wilson came from the University of Nebraska to become the chaplain for the Detroit Lions here in Detroit. He lands there. Somebody told him about this little church start in Rochester Hills, and so he came and ended up there. And so within a period less than a year, all three of us ended up at Faith Church.
When I first saw Mark and Dave and Callie, Ann wasn't on the stage, but they were up leading the praise music before the beginning of the service at Faith Church. We weren't allowed to do praise music in the service. And they're up there, and Dave's kind of got a mostly comb over, and he's playing guitar, and Mark was up there singing, and I had two impressions. One is that Mark had about the most beautiful voice that I'd ever heard anybody at that time. Such a beautiful singing voice. And he and Callie together were angelic, but I didn't realize that he was a star quarterback for Lapeer High School, that he had all these other gifts. And of course, then meeting Dave, I didn't realize that both of these guys, we all three were quarterbacks, only they were good. You know, both those guys were actually good. And so we started hanging out and playing basketball and working out. And what we found is that we all had the same passion, which was for our generation to meet Jesus. We all had great experiences with Jesus and bad experiences with church.
When it comes to my role in Kensington, it's kind of strange that it actually happened for me, because I didn't like church. I didn't really want anything to do with it. I loved Jesus, but I just didn't enjoy church, and it was never meaningful to me. And so Steve came to me one day and said, hey, I would love for you to consider being part of starting a new church with me, a church for the unchurched, people that don't like church. And I'm like, dude, you're coming to the wrong person. I'm not interested. He's like, okay, I know you won't do it, but would you just do this for me? Would you just take a trip across the country and visit a couple places? So he wanted to take me to Saddleback Valley Church, which was Rick Warren's church out in Southern California, and then a couple others out in California, and then on our way back, stop at Willow Creek Church in Chicago. On the West Coast, it was interesting, I enjoyed it, but it didn't resonate. But when I got to Willow Creek Church and saw something that was so powerful that used different methods of reaching people. So that back then it was drama, video didn't really exist, but music that was written from a real life standpoint, portraying people as real people, connecting with a God who loved them as they were, and it was done really, really well. Like, it was very moving to me. I looked at Steve and I said, is that what you're talking about doing? Because I didn't get it. And I said, if that's it, I think I could do that.
I want to welcome you to Kensington Community Church. It's perfect for today's modern family. It's called Video Dad.
Video Dad?
Video Dad?
After a few years into Kensington, we came up with a mission statement for the arts, and it was to create moments for people to engage with God. And we thought about it a long time, like, what is it that we actually are trying to do? And because we know that, and we knew that we couldn't transform the heart. That's the work of Jesus alone. So we weren't in the business of transformation, that's him. What were we in the business of? And I felt like God, for that moment, called us to create these moments and create a space where people could slow down enough to even be in a posture where they could hear what God was doing, what he was inviting them to be a part of, what he was inviting them to feel about the reality of their life.
The spoken word is one thing, a sermon is powerful, but sometimes it's a drama skit that's so relatable, or an artistic moment that's so beautiful or so powerful or so emotional, it cuts right in, and it does something you can't do with a spoken word. And so we wanted to use all of that to say, can we take people on a journey, especially people that don't believe God is relevant to their lives, watch the Spirit of God lead them to himself, and arts and the powerful preaching of the living Word of God would all be a big part of that.
I feel like God called us to help people see that these dichotomies that were in their minds of secular life, just my life, my business life, my family life, and then I've got this church thing over here that I do with God. And they're supposed to coexist. They're supposed to be together. And so I think that's what we had the privilege of doing, was actually connecting with the thing that people cared about the most in a context where they could actually feel it and almost admit it to themselves, maybe for a first time, and then have a presentation of a loving God without judgment, embracing them and loving them in that space.
And every time I go for a promotion and you give me the laundry list of reasons why I won't get the job, you're not supporting me. And every time you say that you're gonna buy salami and don't, you're not supporting me.
I'm sorry, Bobby. I'm sorry.
The good movies, good films, they reach in and they help you identify with your greatest needs, your greatest feelings, your greatest fears, your greatest longings. So it's in another character. Well, you've got a grid, right? So I'm watching this character, but my grid of my life is over it like this. So I'm seeing the character through my life and all the different parts of it. And so I felt like the challenge was to say, because you could take a topic. What's the topic of the message? Well, being wise with your finances. Okay. Well, I'd listen to that. Well, we didn't have to come up with a song with the name finances in it, right? Or do a video that was the latest about it. What we had to do was, I felt like we needed to think, okay, wait a second. So what are people feeling about finances? Well, one of them is they're freaked out. They're freaked out because it's out of control, the credit card debt. And so what we would do in the arts was not to talk about finances. We would try to present and help them connect to, I'm freaked out and I don't have any control over this. What do I do? Because if I can help them own that and realize that is their reality, then it's like now they want to hear what you have to say. I think God did something really amazing. Is that I think he brought Steve and Dave and I together for a very specific reason. And we brought really different things to the table. So Steve has this powerful apostolic gift where he has a heart for reaching people of all nations, of all people types, and having them experience Christ and having the church grow and moving into that's his heart. It's move to people that don't know, right? And Dave's like that, but different, is more of an evangelist approach. He's like, I want everybody to come to know Jesus. But it's gonna be right here, me and and Dave has this amazing teaching gift to go along with that.
Mark had a prophetic gift, which was, what is God saying? What mountain? Where are we going? What are we hearing from God? It was sort of a prophet's gift. And so those three together, it was a beautiful mix. It really worked, and we all understood our different roles, and we ran fast.
As our first 4 kids got older, we were able to experience those opportunities of singing together and being a part of this mission. We always brought our kids along on the mission, but then they really got a chance to be active participants in it. And as a mom, those are treasured memories for me. I think for me personally, there were artistic moments that I was a part of and artistic moments that I didn't play a part in, but I got to watch these people that I loved and was living life with create this beautiful moment through their craft.
To actually step out in obedience to what he's asking you to do when you're like, I don't know how in the heck this is gonna happen. That's what he did on a weekly basis. I think probably my fondest memories are the times when our whole team was literally sweating bullets when we came in for rehearsal that morning, because we knew that, whoa, this could go really bad. and then God would put it all together, and I can't tell you, I would say hundreds of times we'd be in the wings and we would just put our arms around each other. So I remember Keith and Sandy Callan, Steve Matar, Joe Armillo, Kristen Twilla, all these people, we would hug each other and tears would be coming down our face because we knew we couldn't do this. And he did it. I remember so many times we'd be in the back and go, oh my gosh, look what he did. I think what I learned is I'd heard that term from the story of Moses where God says, pick up the stick, and basically the whole concept of use what's in your hand. What I give you is enough. And Moses is like, I can't do this. There's no way I can go to Pharaoh, right? He's gonna kill me. And God basically said, use what's in your hand. And that became a war cry for us. And all of these values or these war cries were birthed out of experience. It was seeing God go, hey, you got what you need. I just think that's what's so exciting, and it's not a Kensington thing. This is a life thing, and I think more and more as we've gotten older, this is what God has done more. I thought when you got to be about 25, you figured out what you were gonna do for your career, you found a spouse, and you locked in and did it for the next 50 years. And you get those 2 decisions right. You get the right career, you get the right spouse, you're set. And one of the biggest surprises of life for me, and I think for you too, is that as we go through life every day, God's like, hey, I got this idea, and it's bigger than me, and I don't want to do it, and I can't do it, and he's inviting me into that every day. Why? Because he wants to do something that's God-sized, not Mark-sized. He said, yeah, anybody can do that. I want you to do something that only I can do. And that's been our experience over and over and over, whether it's Kensington services or if it's our family. He's always, regularly, daily calling us into something that without him, I can't do it. Everybody who's at Kensington now is on an adventure. And none of us, the adventure is Kensington. Kensington's not the adventure. It's Jesus that's the adventure. It's Jesus calling you and your unique created being that he made you into something in partnership with the Holy Spirit that could never be done by another person, never will be done by another person. That's our excitement for people, every person, that they would find within. Some of them, they're gonna have that adventure at Kensington. Some of them are not. And it doesn't matter. What matters is that we can get to a place where we can surrender with no agenda and say, God, have me.
Here's my life.
Here's my life. You lead me. I'll follow. Well, wait a minute. I can't afford that. I don't have the resources. I'm scared to death. I hate that. I'll follow. And when we do that, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be Kensington in 10,000 different alliterations. Kensington, as we knew it, has already happened, and it will never happen again. So I hope nobody tries to duplicate that.
Right.
It's not supposed to be duplicated. That was for us. That was our adventure. What is going to happen in this next season is going to be more wonderful. It's going to be something that has never been done before, that is going to explode the kingdom, right? And so I just am excited to see. For everybody that's connected to the Kensington family in any way, there's unlimited potential and varieties of assignments that God is going to call people into.
I just wish he was here in the room with us so he could actually feel us appreciate him. That's what happens when you say, I'm available. Now, here's the one thing I want to make sure that you don't miss. Because what we could do with a story like Mark's is you could go, great, that's his story. Right? That's the story for people like him that are creative. That's what creative people do, is that kind of stuff. But that's what only people like him do. And so I feel like God gave me this thought in light of this whole message in this morning and the idea of creativity and artistic ability. And it's actually my earliest memory that he took me back to this last week. So I don't know what your earliest memory is, but mine was literally 5 years old. And I don't think I have another memory until I'm like 8 or 9. But I have a very vivid memory at 5 years old of the time that I met Jesus. When I was 5 years old, I remember being in the same classroom every single Sunday on, I can't remember even what city it was in, but I remember sitting in the classroom on this carpet. You remember the rope carpets, the multicolor? They wound all around. If you were a kid, you used to always, if you were a kid like me and totally distractible, you were always following it like a race car track. That was me in this classroom. Mrs. Jessie was my teacher. Little old Mrs. Jessie, week in and week out, teaching these rambunctious, obnoxious little 5-year-olds the stories of Jesus. And I don't know if Mrs. Jessie would have ever described herself as an artist. Couldn't ask her. She's probably been gone for many years now. I don't know if she ever painted anything or wrote a poem. But in light of this morning, I was thinking about her, and I feel like God brought my thoughts back to her in this last week. And here's what I thought. She was an artist. And her art was that every single Sunday in that room of 5-year-olds, she created moments of explanation, where she opened this book and tried to teach us who Jesus was and who he wanted to be to us. She created moments of inclusion, where I remember her doing things that tried to form this little group into its own community. She created moments of consistency, where week in and week out, she was in that classroom. You just knew you could depend on Mrs. Jessie to be there. And I don't know why it was this one particular Sunday, but I'll just never forget. 5 years old, this one Sunday, God used all of that, those moments that she had been creating, used all of that to get through to the head and the heart of a 5-year-old little boy, and changed my life that moment on that carpet. I'll never forget staring out that window and just having this very vivid thought, there is a God. Jesus really is him, and I want to know him. And all of that happened because of what Mrs. Jessie created in that classroom, the art that came out of her life. Book of Genesis chapter 1, it's the story of God creating, but it's more than just the story of what he did. It's really the story of who he is. Genesis chapter 1, probably not unfamiliar to so many of you, but here's what it says. Verse 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formless and it was empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. I love that the text begins with a phrase that's so quickly read and so familiar if this is not new to you, that in the beginning, God created. The first lines of the Bible tell us something so important about the nature of God, and it is that he is an artist. He is a creative. It's not just that he created, he is a creator. He is an artist. He is a creative. And here's what's so cool, is that God pressed himself into his creation called mankind, that we are just like him. Genesis goes on in the same chapter, in the 26th verse, it says this, "Then God said, let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness, so they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and the livestock and all the wild animals and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Here's what's so cool. We open up the book of Genesis and we learn right off the bat that God doesn't just have the power to create, he creates because he's a creative, because he is an artist. And then we read before the first chapter ends that in his artistry, he makes mankind. And in making mankind, he presses into us his image and his likeness. That's so important. Those are two different things that have to be understood. It's not just that we were made in his image, we were made in his likeness. You and I are artists. And I believe that the likeness of God that is an artist, a creative, that created all that is, he pushed that into us when he made us. Into our likeness is his likeness. We're made in his likeness. We're artists. We're creatives, every one of us. And then as you start to read through the stories of the Bible, you see this worked out in the people that God makes. Adam, for example, first man, first woman, Adam and Eve. It's so fascinating what God gives Adam to do as a job. Of all the things he could have given Adam to do, sit on your knees and worship me for all eternity, or do something that feels more religious, or like he could have given him any number of jobs. What did he tell Adam to do? You were to take care of a what? Do you remember? A garden. Yeah. He puts him into a responsibility to be a creative, to tend, care for, nurture, develop, grow. Adam goes on to have a family. Of his family, one son is Cain. Cain eventually has a family of his own. As a result of having a family, he realizes my family needs a place. So Cain builds a city. There's some art for you. He creates an entire city, names the city after his son, Enoch. In Exodus, second book in the Bible, 31st chapter, we have the first time that the Bible ever tells us that a human being was filled with the Spirit of God. And I want you to see to what end God says his Spirit enters this person. Watch this, chapter 31, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, "See, I have chosen Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, the son of the tribe of Judah. And I have," watch this, "filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom and with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills." For what reason? Watch. "To make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, bronze." It goes on to become what was the earliest church, if you will, the temple, the gathering place of God, the meeting place of God with the high priest to communicate to the people. But it's just interesting that he says, I chose him, I filled him for what end? That out of my filling he would create. He would design. He would be an artist. You and I are artists. And I don't care if you ever paint or not, write a poem or not, create a screenplay or not. In who God has made you to be, you are uniquely formed, and you are made in his image, you are made in his likeness, and you are made to create. You are an artist, every one of you. My daughter even reminded me of this recently. I have two daughters, Jocelyn and Corinne, and my daughter Jocelyn is in some ways, she's very abnormal from your typical 13-year-old, because most 13-year-olds, if they were anything like me growing up, when it comes to this time of year, you got one thought in your mind: what am I getting? Right? You're just thinking about what I'm gonna get. You're developing your Christmas list. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still that way. I like my things and I want my stuff. So that is not my daughter Jocelyn. So she's been coming in for weeks now into Christmas, excited off the charts. Do you know why? Not for what she's gonna get. Serious. For what she can give. She's got a list of all her friends, all the people she loves. And she's been going through this list meticulously with, I'm gonna get him this, and I'm gonna get that. She's looking things up online. She's telling her mom, I need you to get this on Amazon. I need you to go to the store to get this one. So the other night she comes in and she's like, Dad, I gotta show you this stuff. And she goes through this whole list of things and people and names, which, by the way, I was not on that list yet. Sweetheart, you've missed one of the most important people. But she gives me this whole list, and she's like, and then I got Addie this, and I got this person this. And I'm like, what 13-year-old does that? Where she's so excited about giving all these gifts to the people that she loves. And here's what I thought, especially in light of this whole message this morning. She's an artist. And it's not just even in this moment. As I think about her life, she has lived a life already in 13 years, almost 14. She'd probably want me to tell you that. In almost 14 years, she has lived a life already of creating consistent moments of relationship. She creates moments of inclusion. She doesn't like people to be left out. She creates moments of care, of compassion. She creates moments of love. You are an artist, made like God, to be like God, to create. And so here's the only question I want to give you this morning as a way of what do we personally take from this today? If that's true that you were made to be an artist, is your life creating what you want it to? Are you creating what you want to with your life? And is the life that you're creating, is it pointing people to the Creator, to the person of Jesus, to his beauty, to his love, to his existence? Because Mark is not the only one made to do that. We are made to do that. And God called Mark to do that in a very unique place here in the context of this community. But you are called no less and no different to do that out of your uniqueness in your context. So the life you're living, is it creating what you want it to? Like in your family, are you creating what you want to in your family? In your marriage, are you creating what you want to in your marriage? In your school, are you creating what you want to at school? In your workplace, are you creating what you want to at work? In your neighborhood, are you creating what you want to with your life in your neighborhood? Because remember Cain, who went on to build a city, named it after his son Enoch. If you know the story of the Bible, then you know before Cain ever built a city, he had a brother. First recorded murder in the Bible, when Cain took the life of his brother Abel. We are artists, we are creatives, but we have as much opportunity any given day to create something beautiful or something destructive and painful. So again, my question is this: are you creating what you want? Is it beauty? And does it point to the Creator? And if any given area of your life, the answer is no. You know what, right now in my marriage, I'm not creating what I want. Or at my workplace, no, I'm not creating what I want to create. Then what will you change in 2021 to create what God's made you to create? A life that brings beauty to this world and reflects, most importantly, the beauty of Jesus. One of the things that we have used again and again and again to be that avenue of creating beauty, reflecting beauty, has been all the ways that our kids have brought that to our stage, to our community, outside the walls of this community. And one of the ways that that's happened was all the way back to something that Mark originally dreamed of that turned into a present-day reality called our Kaleo Kids. And so we have another video for you about Kaleo that's run by a woman who was impacted by Mark early on, caught his vision, and began to run with that to turn Kaleo Kids into not just a place that honors creativity, but even creates creativity in our kids that's impacted not just so many of us here throughout the years at Kensington, but so many outside of these walls as well. So Renee Mullenix is her name, and here's her story.
I was a student in the very first class of the Kensington School of Arts back in probably 1997. Through the School of Arts and with Mark Nelson being one of my mentors, I started to kind of see this bigger vision for what these passions that I had for music. One of the foundations of the School of Arts was that you're a child of God, that you're loved by Him, and anything that you create should come out of that. So after I graduated college with my music degree and I got married, we ended up here at Kensington again. And I started out as a music teacher for a program that was called New Community Kids at the time. We met on Wednesdays, and it was this arts program where we would coach the kids over the course of like 12 weeks. And then over time, Mark Nelson, who was directing it, ended up having to take on another role and was looking for a director. And so I stepped into that role. Opportunities started to unfold for us to expand and grow to other locations, other campuses at Kensington. And the real turning point was when the schools came to us and said, hey, we're really in need of some supportive arts programs. Could you help us? And we thought, okay, let's replicate what we do. Let's try it out. So we kind of went all in on this vision that we felt God gave us, and we changed the name officially to Kaleo, and it means to invite.
Everybody has been familiar with the Kaleo program. It had been around before our partnership with them, but at a point we just saw the need really to invite our school partners' kids into this beautiful program. We took a risk. Renee took a risk in saying, yes, this is important. And so we have had this beautiful relationship with our school partners where we have kids from the campus and kids from our schools who are doing Kaleo Kids Together. And actually we've had, at one point, up to 4 schools that were hosting the Kaleo program. And so our schools were really welcoming in having the campus kids and their kids working together.
We were really nervous the first time we went in, mostly because these kids really hadn't done anything like this before. And, we come in with our, loud music and we're getting them moving, and we're not hard on them, but we do challenge them and we keep them, on their toes the whole time. And we didn't really know if they would love it or what they would think. But by the end of the session, to watch these kids come in literally asking, like, what is a dance class? Are we gonna wear tutus and ballet shoes? To, in the end, learning an entire piece and going up in front of their whole school and confidently dancing and feeling proud of what they did. It was such like a joyful thing for everybody. Even the teachers just were shocked to see some of their kids up there leading. We wanted them to have a bigger vision that when you know who you are, which we believe you are a child of God, and we really wanted kids to understand that. So it's really fun because the arts kind of can open up something in a child that might not show in other ways. And so when you have this team of people that love God and they're listening to God in the moments to say, hey, what can I do to help reach or connect with this kid? It really becomes this amazing opportunity for God to create something that we would not have seen otherwise.
We actually hosted a songwriters workshops for 2 of our schools for 4th and 5th graders. And the song lyrics that came out of those sessions were truly amazing. I mean, themes about beauty and our differences. We're stronger together. There's color in our emotions. I mean, just really big feeling and topics for kids in 4th and 5th grade, and they were just amazing. The kids loved it. Whenever we'd come in, they'd say, "When are the music people coming back?" But it gave voice. It gave them a way to express their feelings, their ideas, their thoughts, their voice.
Our dream would be that we would be able to expand in these schools, offer more programs to the kids there. We get asked by teachers all the time, can we take on more students or, move on to this school? But really, it's the relationship piece that we're really passionate about, and so I think that would be the dream.
Renee's passion, not only for the arts, but for the kids and bringing kids and people together, is just, it's contagious. Her joy and her love for this is truly contagious.
We had a student a while back who had been in our program for years, and it was his 5th grade year that he actually auditioned and received one of our lead roles, and he hadn't really had one before. And it was kind of one of those risks as a director and as the teachers. We were like, I think he's ready for this. Let's give it a go. We all felt, that this was his time, and he really did an incredible job. And the cool part of the story is the mom came back to us later and said that this was such an important mark for her son, who had Asperger's, which we didn't even know, and was really struggling, and had entered into the school one day to volunteer, and the lady at the front desk said, hey, you should go in the cafeteria. He's up there doing announcements for everybody right now. And she was just completely blown away that he had come, so far, and just his confidence and his just, even just to be himself among his peers. Before the pandemic, we had about 6 locations in different schools and at different campuses, and we're reaching about 300 kids at the time. And now, since the pandemic, we've had to really adjust and kind of recalibrate our program and pivot what we do. And so we've just been really creative and, try to have some fun with the limitations. And we've done some crazy things. We've done Kaleo Prize Week, where we put these YouTube videos out. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we did them every day. where kids could go and learn a skill and submit something that they create after it, and we would draw names and send prizes to kids. And we sent tons of ukuleles out to students and gave them free lessons on YouTube, which was a fun way for them to look back and say, hey, I learned a new skill over my quarantine. We also decided to move our programs outside this fall, which was really crazy. We are not outdoorsy people, but we made it happen, and we had the kids meeting outside. We found creative ways to space them out and do their dancing and their drama. They didn't really miss any part of the Cleo magic this year. Somehow we were able to do it. And we filmed all their pieces. So we would film their performances and put together a big show. I want the students to know how loved they are by God, how special and unique they are. They don't have to prove themselves to anyone, and that there's a beautiful future for them. And when they trust God and they just continue following Him, they're gonna experience that joy, and they're gonna overcome trials, and they're going to really shine in their uniqueness.
Renee and her team do such a wonderful job pouring into our young students, training them to be powerful leaders, not only within Kensington, but as you heard, out into the community, into our schools. I was here in the very beginning when Mark had the School of the Arts, and he had a vision for children. And I remember him saying this, that they're not just cute kids, that they are powerful leaders for God's kingdom. And Renee has taken that and just moved that into our community, training kids and letting them know how deeply they are loved by Christ. I can't help but hear that story and then come to a scripture in Matthew 18, one of my favorite ones about children. It says this, at the time, Jesus' disciples came to him and asked him this question, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? He called a child among them and imagine he put him in his lap. And then he says this, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, and whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. This kind of work that Renee is doing is pouring into the next generation and giving them confidence and vision to go out and change the world in Jesus' name. This is what we're about at Kensington. And so as we head into the new year, as this year is coming to a close, I would ask you this. Would you pray and consider giving a year-end gift to Kensington? It's these Christmas gifts that you give that actually fuels these kind of ministries all year long. I'm so grateful that we can see this and be a part of it. Thank you so much for your generosity. I can't wait to see what God's going to do in 2021.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I had this weird experience in church one Sunday. Maybe I'll tell you the whole story one day. But the way the experience ended was with me and a friend of mine I invited to come to church with me that day, sitting in the back of the auditorium, having just come home from a weekend away retreat with our youth group. He had never gone to anything church-related before. It's the first thing he had ever done. We got back from the retreat. He had an incredible experience, and he said, hey, let's go to Sunday night church. I'm like, you want to go to church? All right, let's go to church. And I told him, I'm like, I don't think all the girls that were at the retreat are going to be there. He's like, that's okay. I'm like, wow, all right. So we go and we sit down. Long story short, we walked in with baseball hats on, which was a no-no in the church that I grew up in. And I think we were eating something like Snickers or bag of Skittles or whatever it was. And I'll never forget the choir director stopping the entire service at one point and turning around and pointing us out in front of an entire room and just berating us about our disrespect for God, for Him, for the church, for that room. And he just went on and on and on as you could hear a pin drop other than his voice and every eye in that room on us. And my friend stood up in the middle of it all and with profanity walked out. And as far as I understand to this day, I don't think he's ever walked back into church. And I remember through a series of events like that, as I grew up in that church, I came to a point in my life where I thought, I hate church. I don't ever want to go to church again. And I had this really weird moment because Jesus was so real to me as a kid that I felt really sad, actually. And I remember thinking, I love Jesus, but I don't ever want to go to church when it's up to me to go to church. And I remember being like emotional about that because I felt the conflict in my own spirit, in my own soul about that. But I didn't want anything to do with what I was experiencing as church. I am so thankful for places like Kensington and so many other churches that are creating the opposite experience for our kids. That are creating a place that is not saying to them, God doesn't want you near him if you wear a baseball hat, but says instead to all of us, bring everything you are to the feet of Jesus. Everything. If it comes in a baseball hat, if it comes on the end of a divorce, if it comes with an addiction, bring everything you are to Jesus because he wants every bit of you. And I'm so thankful that this is a community creating something so much different than what so many of us experienced growing up that, frankly, for long times, for many of us, drove us away from Jesus and drove us away from God. It's why, to be honest with you, I am unapologetically going to agree with Danny in asking that as we move into the end of the year, and as all of us, myself and my family, you and your families are all asking of ourselves, even and many of us asking of God already, like, who do you want us to bless this year? Who do you want us to help? How do you want us to give? And we're doing the gift giving thing, is that you would seriously lay before God, how would you have us go above and beyond with a year-end gift to Kensington? Not for the sake of Kensington, but for the sake of the mission that we are all a part of, creating something beautiful and different here. Leading people truly to the person of Jesus. Like Mark said, that the journey is not Kensington. The journey is Jesus. But God's using this place called Kensington to lead people to that journey. So when you came in this morning, you should have all gotten one of these to take home with you today and to start looking through, just as a way of celebrating what God has done this last year, and in many ways also beginning to anticipate what he's going to do this next year. And honestly, I could go through every page here with some form of excitement over the different things in here. I'll just highlight a couple. Like the page that talks about church planting and campusing. Like that's near and dear to my heart, being the director of church planting here at Kensington in addition to my role at Orion. Like, I love being able to be a part of starting new churches. And Kensington is very unique among churches. Over our history, we have launched over 80 churches, and that has only happened because of your generosity. And so many people that I talk to are blown away by that. 80 churches, that isn't an enormous endeavor for us to have taken and to have accomplished over the last number of years. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you realize this. I've been able to share this with a number of groups recently. We have been driven in terms of church planning by a vision for the last number of years that came from Steve Andrews called Vision 2020. The vision was to start 40 multiplying churches by the year 2020 that would reach 250,000 people. And so I've had the privilege as the new guy coming aboard in the year 2020 to tell everybody that we have done it. I've been able to meet with multiple groups recently and share as we've compiled all of the data and crunched all the numbers that we did it. Here we are in 2020, we have over 80 churches that we have launched, so 40 that multiplied, launched other churches, and we have reached well north of 250,000 people through those endeavors. Here's what's also exciting. One of our, and you'll see this in here as well, one of our new global partners this year is an organization called the Timothy Project. Now, the Timothy Project operates primarily overseas right now as an endeavor to plant churches in regions that we just would never be able to get into. With our partnership and with taking them on as a new global partner this year, we've set a goal that is going to be very achievable through them and with our partnership to see over 3,000 churches planted overseas. Like again, this is only happening because of you and your continued support. On a personal level, I would highlight things like 1829, Edge, Breakaway, our high school group, junior high group, our 1829 young adults group. I mean, that's personal to me. I've got a son who's almost 18. I've got daughters in junior high going into high school. I mean, I can't tell you how important what we do in Edge, 1829, Breakaway is to me personally, and I know to so many of you as well. Even divorce recovery. We have Celebrate Recovery, Grief Recovery. Like, I love that we're a church that doesn't say, you've got to be perfect to get to Jesus. We're a church that says no perfect people are allowed here. And we believe that by putting efforts into creating spaces where some of us who are hurting deeply can come and find help in relationship and find the hope of Jesus. Again, I could go through everything in here and be excited about it. Here's what I would just ask you. Go through this.
Spend time this next week and in the next couple weeks as we begin to come to the close of this year and just ask, Jesus, what would you have us do as a family to continue to be a part of funding what happens to reach the world with your hope and your message? I don't know if you realize this, but what we do at the end of the year in terms of your generosity fuels much of what will happen in our endeavors to accomplish our mission over the next year. So thank you for what you've done this last year. And thank you in anticipation for what I know together we're going to accomplish in the year to come. So here's the last thing we're going to do as we go into our closing song this morning is one more short video clip of Mark. One of the things that I have been told about Mark that he deeply believed is he just believed in these ways that God would meet us on very tender, personal, kind of quiet moments. So there's a song that Mark sings about coming to Jesus, flying to Jesus, that is just that. It's personal, it's tender, it's simple, it's quiet. But he also believed that it was on the heels of that God took us to the magnitude of who he is, which will be the song that will follow. Here's Mark.
And with your final heartbeat, kiss the world goodbye, and go in peace and laugh on glory's side, and fly to Jesus. Fly to Jesus, fly to Jesus, and live. Fly to Jesus, fly to Jesus, fly to Jesus. Start before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of a life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. Ooh, and as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls short, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you chased out my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I. I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Man, I want to thank you guys for what you create in moments like that for us. Wow. Last thought I just want you to take out this morning is where we started. Mark, Dave, Steve, they had no idea what the future held when they said yes to Jesus and this start a church idea. On the same hand, they had no idea what was at stake if they had said no. Neither do you. Neither do any of us. We have no idea what's at stake if we say no to a way God prompts us to create a moment of beauty in a relationship, in a group, at work, in our neighborhood. When we refuse to be available, what we're saying is no, and you have no idea what's at stake. You might go, I don't think I'll ever start a church that reaches hundreds of thousands of people. You have no idea. You have no idea. Mrs. Jessie, sitting in that classroom with those 5-year-old kids, had no idea the impact that she would go on to have in our lives and through our lives. And any person God ever gives me the grace to have any form of impact in the life of, I owe to Mrs. Jessie. You have no idea what God wants to do through the unique way
He has pressed his artistic design into you. Be available. Say yes, because you don't know what's at stake if you say no. You are so loved. We're so thankful that you spent the morning with us. We have a team of people directly back here with the lit up room that are here to love you, to pray with you, to pray for you. If we can serve you in that way before you go, please let us. Otherwise, we hope you have a phenomenal Sunday, rest of the week, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye.